Hello everyone. Today we are doing the much requested by you lovely viewers full review of Tarot of the Abyss. I've done an unboxing and this deck was included in my top 5 favorite tarot decks of all time video. So you can feel free to check those out on the channel as well if you're interested. I will do my best to make sure those links are posted down below. But this is the deck itself, Tarot of the Abyss by Anna Torian. The deck is published by US Games, and I will read the back for you now. It says, tarot experiences begin as shapeless and void as the abyss. As we evolve and develop our relationship with the cards, we move from dark chaos to an ordered, illuminated cosmos. In both the major and minor arcana, Anna Torian has created a beautifully nuanced tarot deck designed to mirror the journey of the soul through the universe. She's given particular attention to creating memorable characters in the court cards that skillfully guide us through a progression of knowledge. Includes 80 card deck with 2 alternate cards and 148-page guidebook. So for those of you who may be concerned, is this a dark themed deck? Is this a shadow work deck only? Is it going to kind of creep me out to use it? Is it going to be scary? Despite the fact that these are ink drawings, this is not just it's not a dark themed deck. The artwork is not dark themed in my opinion. And so if you're concerned about that or concerned that it's only for shadow work, it absolutely is not. This deck truly is, much as in the description it is listed as being, it truly is about the soul's evolution through the structure of tarot and how you move from a space of kind of chaos into this energy of illumination. So if you are concerned about that, you don't need to worry about that at all when it comes to this deck. It's most definitely not a dark themed deck, and it's not something that's going to be too confronting in nature at all. On the contrary, I find this deck to be deeply loving, gentle, compassionate, while also being truthful. So it's definitely a very loving, kind deck. It is in no way scary or confronting or harsh. Now, you guys know I love a good kick you in the ass deck, but I do think that there's also deep value to softness, to gentleness, to compassion and understanding. Just as we work with Kali, we also work with Kuan Yin, right? Like there's a time and a space for all of those things. And Anna has definitely created a deck here with Tarot of the Abyss that is very loving, with artwork that's very eye-opening. I think if you're new to tarot, you can absolutely work with this deck. You're just going to want to have a Tarot 101 guidebook or an Intro to Tarot book with you as you work with the energy of this deck. But the artwork is so illuminating from a standpoint of, and when we get into the imagery, I'll discuss some of it with you, but she really opens up a slightly different view, a slightly different window into traditional card meanings while still staying true to the structure of tarot. So it creates this beautiful opportunity for a lot of meditation, for a lot of journeying with the cards, which really does create a space of a long-term, being able to have a long-term relationship with this deck. I truly love this deck. I highly recommend it, highly recommend it. If you're on the fence about it, I say go for it. You're gonna have a powerful experience with this deck. I'm sure. I think it will be rare that someone doesn't connect with this deck at all. However, if that's the case for you, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you at all. It's just, I do feel like this deck, if you put the time and energy into working with it, you can really build a beautiful relationship with it. And you're going to see where you want to work with this deck. And those times when you do need to be held, but you also need honesty. This is a deck that's going to do that for you. And I also want to take a moment and say thank you to the client and the viewer who sent this deck to me. She really felt like I would resonate with it, and she was 1000% right. So much thanks and gratitude to her for sending this deck to me. So when you open up the box, it's got this beautiful black interior. You know, the interior of tarot deck boxes really does it for me, or not, depending on the color choice. And obviously I love this choice here on the inside. Here is the guidebook. There's a very brief intro. In the back are the card spreads. So if that, you know, just a heads up there, if you were thinking or expecting the card spreads to be at the beginning, they're not, they're at the end of the deck. And special attention has been given to the court cards, and she goes into that at the beginning of the guidebook itself. And then you get a couple paragraphs for each and every card in the deck, not just for the majors. So this is definitely a guidebook that you want to read at least once and acquaint yourself with, you know, her interpretation. There are 2 additional representations of both the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords. These are the 2 that I chose not to include in my deck at this point in time. I've definitely kept them because I think I'm going to want to mix it up as time continues to go by. But there are 2 additional representations. And as you guys know, Three of Swords is like a barometer for me with a deck. Typically, if I really love the imagery of the Three of Swords, I end up enjoying working with the deck long term. And I definitely enjoy both representations of the Three of Swords and the Ten of Swords in this deck. The cardstock is not matte, which is my absolute favorite cardstock, but it is a good quality cardstock. As long as you take care of your decks, I don't see it, you know, disintegrating on you rapidly. It is not overly shiny, or slippery, which is nice. So like you can put it on, you know, if you put it on a table or an altar, it's going to stay there. It's going to stay there. So don't worry about that too much. If that's a concern for you. It is for me. I don't like overly slippery decks. I like to leave my decks out for the most part. And so if I can't leave them somewhere and know they're going to stay where I've put them, that drives me nuts. If I'm shuffling and because the cardstock is so slick, the cards go everywhere, that's beyond frustrating for me too. And I do not have that problem with this deck. So if that's a concern for you, all is well on that front. Let's get into the imagery. As I said, definitely not dark themed or going to be something that's overly confronting if you're in a space where you need gentleness. It's just that they are pen and ink drawings. And so I actually find this to be really like a relief to the eyes to look at times. Sometimes I love that oversaturation of color and kind of like overstimulation in a card with a lot going on. But then sometimes that actually doesn't feel good for me. And this is one of those decks where it's like very relaxing for my eyes and it's very calming when I look at it because I don't have too much that I'm trying to understand in the imagery at first gaze. I love this depiction of the devil. As I said, there's these slight shifts in her choice and imagery that are still in alignment with traditional meanings, but they give you a different window to meditate with. Here is the version of the Ten of Swords that I chose to keep in my deck. I love that the 10th sword is in this individual's hand who we can't see. We can't see him or her. They're walking away from us towards the person who's dealing with all of these knives in their back, right? All of these swords in their back. I love that the individual is holding the 10th sword in their hand. It gives you pause to be able to meditate and to journey with what that individual is going to do with that sword and which of the 2 individuals are you in the imagery and what do they have to share with you. There's so much here to unpack and I love that imagery. The other thing that I love about this deck is that it's really helped me to connect with the element of air in a very healthy way. I don't have any air in my chart. I am all earth and water with a teeny bit of fire, and the air element is definitely something I struggle with connecting with in a healthy way for myself on my path. And this deck allows me to experience, like I love the entire suit of swords, how she depicted the entire suit of swords. I love that depiction of the lovers, that intertwining, that chosen intertwining you see in that imagery. She allows me to experience through her artwork the element of air, the suit of swords, in a calming way as opposed to the disruptive, sometimes painful way that I can tend to interact with the suit of swords and sometimes the element of air. So if you're someone who's looking to connect more with the element of air, this might be a deck where you can really get into your sweet spot there. And I would encourage you to give it a try for that reason alone. But yeah, it's definitely a very beautifully crafted, the entire deck is beautiful. I'm not just saying it's the suit of swords, but the suit of swords, especially in this deck for me, which are typically a suit that I feel no connection with, I've really been able to meditate with and get a lot out of it. Seven of Swords here is a perfect example of that, right? Let's see, there's, oh here, I love this Eight of Wands. Isn't that beautiful? If you're Cancerian or if you're one of my Chariot people, there's the Chariot. Love this Ace of Cups. You see how it's not frightening artwork. It's not, you know, too dark. It's not going to give you that feeling at all if you're worried about that. I love this Six of Cups. Again, like just these slight shifts in how she chose to represent the imagery that gives you a chance to have a new experience, like this Ten of Pentacles, the hands coming together. I love it. I love this deck. I just can't say it enough. I've journeyed with this Eight of Cups several times. I love that the depiction, instead of someone walking away into the mountains, we have the woman, and we're looking at their back, we have the woman coming towards us. She's moving away from the home. And she's saying she doesn't want what's in this cup. She's emptying the cup out. She wants more for herself, and she's prepared to go on a journey to experience that. So I love that subtle shift in the imagery that really opens up a fresh perspective. I love this depiction of temperance here. Let's see, there was, judgment becomes awakening. There are some card title changes. So like I said, if you're new to tarot, you are going to want to have a Tarot 101 book or an Intro to Tarot just to help you get a handle on, love this depiction of Eight of Swords, to help you get a handle on traditional titles, traditional meanings when it comes to those. Two of Swords, this is another one I've meditated with. It's fascinating, the masks. And I love in the guidebook, she talks about, you know, she references those masks we put on for others, for people. And have we put on so many masks that we don't even know what this is? Like, what is the authentic internal self? Are we even aware of who we are in the situation, right? And then this Five of Swords was a really transformative one for me in my personal practice, to this imagery of this moth or this fey being or butterfly that's trapped inside the jar. And what is this individual going to do with this being that's trapped? This has been a really impactful one. I found in readings for clients, this deck actually tends to come forward for people who are experiencing times of loss or who feel really stuck, which I know many of us have been experiencing over the last few years. This like energy of not being able to like move things forward for ourselves, but feeling like we're really spinning our wheels and we can't get any traction in our lives. Like it's all just one endless day in a way. This deck really is a beautiful deck to work with if you are dealing with that feeling. It tends to want to show up for people who are experiencing that. And again, offer a slightly shifted perspective that's not so far out of alignment for you that you've got to like, your mind has to like reorganize itself. But it's just subtle enough of a shift that you can kind of open and allow some breath into that fresh perspective. And this deck definitely provides that. So as you can, here's the Three of Swords that I chose to have in my deck. This was the one I was looking for. I love both of the depictions of Three of Swords. I went with this one as the one for my working deck right now. Number one, I love when a tarot deck has those three swords buried in something, because that's a traditional imagery and I just love that imagery. I love that the three swords are buried in the title. And I love that we have this, you know, that the bird, which was her heart, yes, that's been broken. That's been kind of hulled out in that space. But what's happened is there's actually a rebirth that's coming from the heartbreak. That broken heart is recrafting itself into something new, into this beautiful bird who's wonderfully free. So I love the feeling of the entire story within the Three of Swords that you get just from this one image, right? And yes, there is mourning. She is sad, but she's not broken. There's an awareness she's having as she opens up to this bird, right? So I love that depiction. That was the card I really wanted to show you guys too in this deck. So I highly, highly recommend Tarot of the Abyss. I can't say enough wonderful things about this deck. I really love it. I really, really love it. As I said, it's actually a very gentle, very kind, very loving deck. And so if you are looking for that, just because it's a black and white or grayscale imagery, does not mean that you can't experience that feeling of love from this deck. So if that's kept you on the fence about it, don't let that hold you back. It's a really, really beautiful deck. It's very unique. If you're a collector, It's not like all the other decks out there. This is not a Rider-Waite-Smith knockoff that was created on the fly to cash in on the tarot craze right now in general society. This is a deck that was very well thought out. At least it seems that way to me. It's very intentional in its creation. It's very beautiful. And it's a wonderful one to work with. It's one that you can really sink your teeth into, that you can really do a lot of journeying with, dialoguing with, and then documenting that for yourself so that you can come back over time and look back and see where there's been evolution of your soul, which was her intention in creating the deck. So I highly, highly recommend this deck. If you've been on the fence about it, I say go for it. I don't think you'll regret it at all. And thank you to the viewers who didn't let me forget to make sure to record this full review, because this deck definitely deserves a full review. I am sending you so much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video.